Charles Leclerc Friday disaster as the Ferrari driver crashes in first practice at the Canadian Grand Prix and misses almost the entirety of the opening day as a result. Elsewhere, George Russell topped the timesheets in a Mercedes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, you heard that right. Whilst Fred Vasseur addressed the Italian media rumours surrounding both the futures of him and Leclerc. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm delighted to be joined, as always, by lead editor Ian Parks. And yes, I am speaking a bit quieter than normal. That's because it is 12:30 in the evening or morning in the UK, whichever way you like to look at it. Ian, the same for you, of course, mate. But let's start off with Charles Leclerc, because, Ferrari came into this weekend needing a good performance, and he had the worst possible start, crashing at turns 3 and 4 in the first 15 minutes of FP1, and as a result, missed not only the rest of FP1, but the rest of Friday in general.
Yeah, disaster. As you say, Nick, it was one of those weekends when Ferrari really needed to make a good start. They come into this weekend of the Canadian Grand Prix with all these rumours swirling around the team, swirling around Charles, who'd had to dismiss them on Thursday, swirling around Fred Vasseur, and he had both Charles and Lewis Hamilton really vouching for Fred Vasseur as team principal, given the Italian media suggesting that Fred could be axed, suggesting that Charles was going to be on his way at the end of the season. We've already had rumours from the Italian media suggesting that Lewis Hamilton could retire at the end of the season. Lewis put them in his place. Charles put them in his place. And we'll get on to Fred Vasseur in a second, as I know. But yeah, for Charles, 15 minutes into FP1, he'd actually set the fastest time at that particular stage, which was a reasonably good time. Such a good time, in fact, that it ended up still being the 10th quickest at the end of FP1. But yes, 15 minutes in, hurtling up the slight incline between turn 2 and 3. There is a slight hill for anybody who's ever been at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve between turns 2 and 3. And it was almost one of those, you could see he was caught in two minds. He knew he'd overcooked the corner, and it was a case of, do I head down the slick road? He didn't take that option. As we know, it's a split-second moment, and he hit the brakes, but he hit the brakes too late. Smacked the front left of that Ferrari into a barrier pretty hard. The momentum then saw him smack the rear left of that car as well. Both the entire left-hand car, that pretty much destroyed. Car left in the middle of the track, and that was his session done. The worst news for Ferrari was that they damaged the chassis, and in F1, chassis replacement takes such a long time. It also has to be homologated by the FAA and approved by the FAA. That cannot take place until the following session, which in this case, following day, which in this case for Ferrari, of course, means that Charles was out of FP2 and his next session is going to be FP3. So out of 2 hours of running, he only had 15 minutes on Friday. Really bad start for Ferrari and Charles.
Yeah, definitely a driver who's going to be up against it on
Absolutely.
Saturday, as will Lance Stroll, who also missed the majority of FP2 after he clipped the wall. So a bit of disastrous home opening day for the Aston Martin driver.
Let's move on. One, though, wasn't it?
It was
just
really strange,
quickly.
Wasn't it? Talk about it.
That was strange, yeah, because he'd come out of turn 7, and it's a very quick turn 7. It's a very snappy kind of right-hander, and you hit the power straight away as you come out of it, but you hit the power to a certain extent that he brushed the wall with the front left, but nevertheless that was enough to break the front suspension and front wishbones on that front left, and that was him done. He tried to make it back, was told no, park the car, otherwise pretty much you're going to get done for driving the car in an unsafe condition, and he managed to carry on all the way up to the hairpin at turn 10. Is it the hairpin, I think, Nick? And turn 10. Turn 10, I'm pretty confident, turn 10. And yeah, found a runoff place to park the car, and the marshals attended to the car. So yeah, his session was done after near enough 6 minutes in FP2. No red flag for that session, for that particular part of the session, whereas in FP1, session was red flag for Charles Leclerc's crash. So they lost 8 minutes there overall.
Let's have a look off track just for a brief second and discuss, obviously, these comments from Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur, and obviously was one of the three team principals in the team principals press conference today, and of course was asked about these wild rumours, it's fair to be said, that have come out from Italian media. And I mean, rightly so, Fred is not happy. I think this is possibly, the punchiest he has been since being in red for Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely. And rightly so in many respects, because as we discussed in Thursday's F1 update, as I mentioned to you then, the Italian media love nothing more than giving their beloved Scuderia a good kicking when things are going wrong. You think the English media is bad? Well, trust me, folks, from experience, the Italian media is far, far worse, especially when it comes to Ferrari. So as I mentioned, there have been all these rumours in the Italian press, not all of them, but just a couple of them, a couple of the leading national newspapers in that country, one of whom particularly took umbrage against Fred Vasseur, as I say, stating that if things continue along these lines, then he would be out of a job. And another paper also suggesting that Charles Leclerc could be gone by the end of the season, that he was potentially lining up a move and linking Mercedes, quite obviously, because Mercedes has effectively got 2 seats free if you consider that both George Russell and Kimi Antonelli do not have a contract for next year as yet. So linking Charles Leclerc to Mercedes, as I say, with an exit from Ferrari. So naturally, Fred was asked about these rumours in the press conference, and he started off by saying, I need to stay calm, otherwise I could be heading to the stewards. And for the most part, he did stay calm. That was with reference to the fact that these days, if you swear in an official FIA press conference, if you use a profanity, then more often than not, that profanity will be frowned on by the media delegate that oversees the press conferences. That media delegate will then go and report the matter to the stewards. So Fred, as I say, really unhappy. And he did point out that it was some Italian media, not all Italian media. And less about himself, he was more thinking about the personnel within Ferrari, because not only has his job been placed on the line by the media, but there were also rumours about certain staff coming in who could replace some members of Vasseur's team that already have positions within Ferrari. So Fred was more concerned about these team members because, as he pointed out, and quite rightly so, the damage that these reports do when you consider that those team personnel, as he said, they've got family, they have a wife, they have children. It's the negative impact that it could have on those people overall. So he was more concerned about the team. He said the damage that such reports could do to the team. For Fred himself, he's always been a very thick-skinned person. For him, he doesn't really care. It's water off a duck's back. He knew when he was going into this position that this is what he could potentially be facing. And so it is. It's come to pass. This is the spotlight that now is being thrust upon him by the Italian media. But as I say, Fred's not too worried about himself. It's more about him protecting the staff around him from such negative reports. And he, as far as he's concerned, wants it to stop because the team is united. Lewis and Charles most definitely are united behind Fred Vasseur right now. Whether John Elkann, the Ferrari chairman, is, that we do not know. But you would assume at least that given this major regulation change going into next season, why change the team principal right now? It doesn't make any sense to do so. Give Fred his due credit for what he's trying to do behind the scenes. We know that he's developed a much closer knit team. Ferrari used to be a team that operated in these silos under team principles in the past. Fred's dismissed that. He's got them working more closely together. There's greater unity, greater harmony. Lewis and Charles have spoken about that. So going into 2026, as I say, let Fred carry on, do his job, and then let's see where Ferrari is next season and whether it's managed to get a good handle on the new regulations for 26. But for right now, the Italian media, as far as they should be concerned, this is one united team, one tough nut that they are trying to crack, and I don't think they're going to do it in this case.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Italian media reacts obviously to Fred's comments. You imagine that'll probably come out over the coming days. Moving back to on track, and I mean, it was basically the ultimate Friday for Mercedes. George Russell topping the timesheets,
and actually, by you, mate. Well done.
Thank you for. I'll take this. Even our stat guru Jake Nickel didn't notice this. I'm taking full credit because not only did George Russell top the timesheets, only just ahead of Lando Norris. We'll discuss McLaren a bit more in a second.
Read out the top 7, Nick. Go for it.
I'll read out the top 7 because for that, I've already said it, but it was a Mercedes powertrain top 7. George Russell topped the timesheets ahead of Lando Norris, Kimi Antonelli, Alex Albon, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, and Carlos Sainz in 7th. Top 10 was completed by Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Liam Lawson. But yes, Ian, I don't think, and maybe our viewers can comment below if they know this question. Has this happened before? Have we ever had a Mercedes powertrain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? I mean, that's extraordinary, isn't it?
The anomaly, of course, being poor old Lance Stroll, who, as I mentioned earlier, crashed out inside 6 minutes. So not quite the top 8, not quite a clean sweep of all Mercedes powertrain cars. It's late, folks.
It's very late.
It is very late. Anyway, not quite a clean sweep of all Mercedes powertrain cars, but nevertheless, that's quite something, and that's put a lot of pressure on both Ferrari and Red Bull in particular to try and crack that Mercedes wall that they've got now in front of them going into qualifying. Just to touch on Red Bull a little bit, because Max Verstappen topped the timesheet after FP1.
Yeah.
Really good. That's the first time Max has topped the timesheet in practice all season long, by the way, folks. So that says something. Yeah. Exactly. They made changes, Red Bull, in between FP1 and FP2, as all teams do, just to try and improve performance quite naturally. Unfortunately, it severely affected the handling of that car, and as Helmut Marko pointed out post-practice on Friday, that gives you some idea as to the very narrow operating window of that RB21. So Red Bull are quite naturally overnight going to be reverting back to the setup that they had in FP1, and hopefully that will give Max Verstappen a chance of performing in qualifying. Could he challenge again last season? Last season, of course, it was a dead heat between George and Max, a 1:12 dead qualifying pole position lap, but it was George on pole by virtue of the fact that he set his lap first ahead of Max Verstappen. McLaren, really strange day for them. But I'm going to touch on them now, Nick, because they were off the pace. Yes, okay, Lando Norris was second quickest at the end of the day, 0.023 seconds down, I believe, on George Russell. Nowhere in FP1. They were trialing new parts on that car. They got a new front wing on Oscar Piastri's car in particular, new front suspension that they were also looking at, and it was pointed out that the front wing in particular really was only a test part. That was dispensed with for FP2. So then both both Lando and Oscar running the same front wing in FP2. However, Lando did have a new front suspension. So given the performance that Lando showed with that front suspension, you would suspect that going forward for the rest of the weekend that Oscar will also have that front suspension. Nevertheless, Oscar just under half a second down on both George and Lando at the end of FP2. So he's got a bit of work to do. That's the first time in FP2 this season he's not been in the top 3. So that gives you some idea as to the difficulties that the championship leader has faced on Friday.
One driver, just to finish things off, should I say, I want to touch on is Franco Colapinto, because if you take Take out Lance Stroll and Charles Leclerc, of course, from the FP2 timesheets because neither set a lap time. Franco was at the bottom in 18th, 1.8 seconds off George Russell's pace setting time. But what's more interesting is the fact that the top 17 was actually split by 1.052 seconds. So Colapinto almost just over 7/10 adrift
of a second
of 17th. I mean, he had some two very interesting spins at the second corner as well, but it's just not clicking for him, is it?
It's weird. That's a big anomaly when you think about it. 7/10 of a second. And as you say, those two spins, both at exactly the same point, going into turn two. I thought the second one was quite hilarious, and I pointed this out in our chat, didn't I? Because naturally, he'd had the spin, was facing the wrong way towards the pit lane, and of course, he's waiting for that opportunity to spin the car back around again to actually face the right direction to continue on. Just as he's waiting to spin that car around, lo and behold, who should come in the opposite direction but his teammate Pierre Gasly. So you had one Alpine going that way, one Alpine going the other way. I thought that was quite hilarious, but for Franco Colapinto, not an hilarious day on track at all. And when the stories about Franco Colapinto first emerged, and of course we had all this about, he's got these 5 races to try and prove himself, which Flavio Briatore then kind of dismissed a little bit. But that 5-race cutoff comes, if that still exists in any way, shape or form, at the end of not this weekend, but the following weekend in Austria. And so far, Franco just has done 0 pretty much for Alpine. Could he be replaced? There's rumours now that Checo Perez might be lined up for that seat. Now, wouldn't that be something? In all honesty, I'd give the seat back to Jack Doohan, because I didn't think Jack performed that badly during his stint. I thought it was a little bit harsh that they dropped Jack and brought Franco in. Franco, for me, has performed even worse than Jack Doohan. So Flavio Briatore has got a lot to think about if Franco doesn't perform over the rest of this weekend, and then going into the Austrian weekend, and he struggles. Big decision to make for Flavio at such an early juncture in Franco's time with the team, because Flavio was raving about Franco, and he made all the right noises, pulled out all the stops to get him out of Williams. He's got his man, and so far his man is not pulling up trees as he was hoping for.
Ian, amazing stuff. As always, we'll call it there. For those who've been watching this F1 update, please do let us know your thoughts on the opening day in the comment section below, but also let us know who you think is going to claim pole position. I think it's going to be a very, very close one. Ian and I will be back after qualifying on Saturday, although for the majority of you watching this would be very, very early Sunday morning. Please do smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join Ian and I after qualifying on Saturday or Sunday. See you later.
Thanks as always for watching and listening. Take care, folks.